So this is the next few minutes. Will HMRC inherit your farm? So I think I've got Luke at the back is going to. Are you going to press a couple of buttons, Luke, please? So this is a bit of fun, really. So there's a QR code on your seat that if you scan that on your phone, okay. You will pick up something called Slido on there, and okay. So can we just go back to the last slide? Okay, yeah. So sorry. Yes. So we're going to look at some survey questions in a minute. So the three most important documents that we live with, okay, and the team and Luke here and Chrissy and Sam. Who are our tax team, wills, partnership agreements and annual accounts. So as you're at the front, Luke, how often do we see that those three documents are not lined up? All the time.
Every day.
Every day. So a lot of the work we do is advisory work, which is one-off projects. We work with other accountants, we do, and with solicitors as well, to do a lot of one-off projects where we don't do what we call the compliance, the annual accounts. We go in as a team to help the farm out, succession, etc. We look at the documents. One or two or three of those, well, not three of them, but one or two of those are missing. The top two could be missing. And just got the annual accounts. If they are there, they've been done by three different lawyers, etc., and accountants. And as you say, quite often, and this is the problem we have. So those three documents so important to get those three documents. So if we go back to Slido, which is this is very brave for me actually. I haven't done this before. So on your phones you have scanned this. So I've asked the tax team to put the first question. So this is what they deal with day to day. This is the first question. So if you can, and so all you're going to do is answer. Click on the box on your phones, and this apparently is the first question that the tax team have come up with. So who do you think will win the sixth? And you can see it's live up there. So Wales isn't doing so well, and actually I think Wales are on strike. So I am half Welsh. I was born in Wales, but I have disowned Wales actually, to be honest, after the last two games they played and currently on strike. So still going. So 54 Ireland actually, Scotland 20. Okay, 9-6 and 0. So somebody else is giving a little push to England there. I think we're probably there now, so we can lock that. Okay, so, and I was a bit surprised that this is the most important work the tax team are doing at the moment, but that's fine. I'll speak to them tomorrow morning in the office. Who do you think will win the Six Nations? You can lock that now, I think. So this is managed by Chrissy. Where are you, Chrissy? Somewhere. Oh, yeah, there. This is Chrissy on her phone is actually managing this at the moment. So this is really good technology. So have you locked that now, Chrissy? Yeah. Okay. So so that's it. So that's a test question, if you like. So we're now going to go to hopefully a couple of real questions before we hit the food at the back. Okay. So the next question is: do you have a will? So and I think this should be interesting. Wow. Okay. And Emma, whilst have you pressed your button? So, yeah. So Emma, can you remind us, please, how many nationally people don't have wills? Can you shout out, please? Yeah, hold on. We'll get a mic. Yeah. Who's going to get there first? Okay.
According to a fairly recent survey, as many as 60% of UK adults don't have a will. 60%
don't have will. Wow. Okay. Okay, so of the people in this room, okay, and you are mainly farmers and a few advisors here, 37% of you do not have a will at the moment. That is absolutely frightening, isn't it? Yeah. So 57 or 35% now, it's changed a little bit. So which means intestate. So I have here somewhere Lisa's sitting at the back. So can you give Lisa Millington from Roythorns is just going to remind us, or remind the 35% in this room, what will happen if you die now. Okay, so intestate rules, Lisa, just in a couple of sentences, please, without going too technical.
Yeah, okay. So essentially it's the rules of intestacy that determine how your estate is distributed if you die without a will. Often it is assumed that your spouse or civil partner will inherit everything. That is absolutely not the case. If you are married or in a civil partnership and your estate is worth more than £270,000, your spouse will not inherit everything. So statutory legacy goes to the spouse or civil partner, £270,000. They do get all of your stuff as well, so your furniture and your clothes and your jewellery. And then any residue, anything left over from that is then divided equally between the spouse and any children. If there aren't any children, then spouse, civil partner might be okay, they'll get everything. And if you're not married and you don't have any children, then it goes on from there, sort of up to parents, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles. And eventually you may have seen programmes like Heir Hunters, where it ends up bona vacantia and going to the state, although that's incredibly rare that you get to that situation and you haven't found any relatives.
Wow, okay. So thanks Lisa. So Sam, whilst you're holding the mic, how often do we... There's 35% people in this room that don't have wills, which is quite frightening. How often do we come across this in our work?
Yeah, fairly regularly. I think it's not just wills, is it? I think we're probably going to go on to talk about it. It's looking at the will and the partnership agreement and making sure everything works and dovetails in together.
Okay, yeah. Yes, yeah, and which is what I said at the beginning. So just on that point then, if you've got a will and a partnership agreement, which takes the precedence? So, and I think I have Chris here, who's going to just answer us very quickly with a mic. Who's going to get there first? There we go. So Chris from Tees Law is just going to fill us in on partnership agreements and wills and how you hold land. Leave the holding land for a minute, just the partnership agreement and wills, what's the most important and how to get them to dovetail together, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm a solicitor at Tees in the Cambridge office. In terms of your will and partnership agreement, it's the partnership agreement that will take precedence, depending on what the partnership agreement actually says, that is. So it's really important that if you do have a partnership agreement and you go to see someone to do a will, that the person you speak to about your will also has sight of your partnership agreement and can talk to your advisors who are helping you with the partnership, because if not, you might find yourself in a sticky situation where what you thought would happen on your death actually doesn't happen with those assets. And I'd just say this question about do you have a will, just because you've got a will that you might have done a long time ago, you need to review it regularly and make sure that it still does what you need it to do.
That'll be the next question, Chris. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Advanced answer.
Yeah, sure. So what you said, that the partnership agreement overrides the will? Or can do?
Yes.
Automatically does, unless
Yes,
you do something
generally
about
speaking, it's the partnership agreement that will govern the assets within the partnership.
Yeah, yes. So you can't give away what you don't own, basically. Exactly. Yeah. So there is that sort that needs to be thought. So even if you do have a will, and you need to make sure that your partnership agreement allows your will to work, basically. So that's really important as well. So you can see the work we do. This is our day-to-day work. So we've now got another question. So Chrissy on your phone, who's taking over this. If you have a will, so those who have a will, which is what, 65%, is up to date. So, wow. So of those that have got a will in the room, so that how many had a will? It was 7, can you remember? 65% had a will. Of those 65%, only half roughly are up to date. So anybody wants to rush out now and do anything about this? Or do you want to wait for the food at the back? But I think this just goes to show that what the problem is, and you know, and you many of you here are farmers that own assets worth a few millions. Lisa, you want to say something? Again.
Am I switching on? Yeah. Just to add on that, about a will being up to date, sometimes people may think they have a valid will in place and they don't, because a lot of people don't understand or know that marriage revokes a will. Yeah. So
yes.
if you've made a will and then you've got married, the chances are, unless it was made in contemplation of that marriage, you don't have a will, but you think you do.
Yes, exactly. So if you've got a will and then you got married, then you don't have a will again unless you redo it. So it's a license to print money for lawyers. But sorry, yes. I didn't mean to say that. Sorry. The lawyers are very helpful at the moment. Yeah, yeah. So no. So isn't this a huge problem? Wow, I never thought it would be, so in the room. We have quite a few professionals in the room as well. So, and you're in those numbers, I presume. That's all the, I think that's all the slider, Chrissy, is it? Yeah. So, and Chrissy, did you want to say, if you have Sam, did you want to give her so Chrissy, we had a meeting, with clients early on this week, on Monday, was it? And
we had a meeting on Monday with two brothers who have inherited quite a large share of a farm, and neither of them have a will. And one of the risks that we also have is their mother, who is a partner, who is in her 90s, also doesn't have a will. And particular risk of this is it's quite an unharmonious family with other siblings involved. And so we have, of course, pointed them in the direction of their solicitors quite urgently.
Yeah, so you can see this is what this is what we do, and this is why I'm grey, basically. So Luke, you'll get there one day. Yes, we were talking about that earlier on, weren't we? So back to this. You can see how these are so important, and the annual accounts as well. We have people disputing wills because the annual accounts are not in line with the wills, etc., what you're giving away. So very finally, because we've got food at the back, so will HMRC inherit your farm? Just 2 slides here, just to finish off that very frightening last few minutes. So example 1 and example 2, okay? So this is just a very brief example of farming partnership. Okay, so we've got a partnership there. The land is held outside the partnership on the left, and then we've got rental property. Many farming businesses now, we're encouraging them to rent property out, 100,000 per annum rent. In that structure, okay, the inheritance tax bill would be, it's very simplistic, 320,000 on 2 assumptions at the bottom. Assuming full relief on the farmhouse, that the farmhouse isn't a huge mansion, it's just a normal farmhouse, and the nil rate band, which is 325,000 each, is used somewhere else. Okay, so very simplistic in terms of there. So that tax bill is 320,000. So if we simply, and I was going to ask Chris to say a bit about this. If we move, I don't know where I'm clicking. There we go. Example 2, farming partnerships. So now we've got the land inside, okay, and we've got the rental property inside. So look at the tax bill there. And all we've done is a couple of documents. Okay, worked with the lawyers and done a couple of documents. So that 320,000 tax was voluntary, wasn't it? And so so again, this is how simple it can be in some situations to do that. What else were you going to say, Chris, about partnership agreements and land capital accounts? Was that? Yeah, there we go.
Is it working?
Yes, it's working.
Just in terms of the land capital account, what we sometimes find, and what some other professional advisors here might find, is that people inherit land, they gift land, the ownership of land changes, and across the generations. And sometimes you might just get an entry on a land capital account that just says land, and that's not helpful, bearing in mind that you probably own lots of different parcels with different title numbers. So we do find what we sometimes call beneficial creep, where different people end up owning different shares in land, but they're not really sure what they own, when they inherited it, and how much it's worth. So one thing that I would just say is that it's really important to do that exercise now, work out exactly what you do own, what's in the partnership and what's not. It will make things so much easier and less costly for you further down the line.
Thanks, Chris. So, Chrissy, we had in the western part of the country where we had a job we've been working on where all the land and if you have the microphone, Chrissy, all the land was within the partnership correctly like that. However, it wasn't, as Chris is saying, it wasn't identified, was it? So we had to do a deed of rectification.
Yes. We had a really unhelpful, all the land appeared to be held within a current account figure.
With one balance.
With one balance.
One number.
Which did appear to actually hold land in it as well. So we've had to get them in contact with their solicitors in order to restate who actually owns what proportion of both the current account and the land supporting it.
And that's the annual accounts. Had one number covering all the land and everything else. Several partners. Nobody knows or knew in 3 generations. Was it 3? Yeah, 3 generations. Nobody knew who. The accountant didn't know. Nobody knew who owned what. And that's a family we've been working on for the last few months. Sam, we're just about to finish.
Yeah, I think just to sort of go on from that, I think we've seen scenarios where assets have been left maybe to non-farming children, and when it comes to it, they might have been, in one case, everything was swept up in the current account, and the current account goes to the farming, the children that are farming, not the non-farming children. So you can end up with issues there where you think the non-farming children may inherit something.
We end up with people contesting wills, etc. Nobody knows who owns what, but this is how we make money. But it's so easy to get it right. I think this is the major point that what we want to make. It's so easy to get it right, but there's so much wrong out there. So we've got a career ahead. Hopefully, I've got a few years left to say a career ahead of myself, trying to help farming families nip all this in the bud and getting it sorted before you end up and somebody dying in those situations. So, is there anybody else want to make any comment about this? So we've had our tax team, and which is Luke, Sam, and Chrissy, and a couple of lawyers speaking. Anybody else want to make any comments before we close for the close of play and start having silent? Say Rachel, sorry, another lawyer. Yes, sir.
Yeah, apologies about that. It was just more of a...
So it's Rachel from Burkitt's.
Yeah, sorry, Rachel from Burkitt's. It's more of an addition to the business governance suite of documents. So you talked about partnership agreements and the rest, but the other point just to add is powers of attorney, which can also help for business continuity. And it's not just if it's long-term incapacity, it could be you have an accident on the A14 and you're out for a couple of months. So it was just an addition to that.
Very good point, Rachel. So, and we're coming across this quite a lot more actually because people are living longer, and mental capacity is a huge problem in the client base that we have. We have many people live longer and longer and then lose capacity to actually sign anything, which leads in a deadlock situation. Okay, so our work is very challenging, but very, very pleasing when we can help people, etc. And this is what we do every day of the week, nearly. This sort of work, because we are strategic tax advisors, then accountants as well. Okay, so I think I have one slide. Thank you very much, and please stay and enjoy some Saxby cider and a hog roast at the back. And thank you very much for taking part in our first survey. And there's some very strong messages there, and I hope the 35% of you, or whatever percentage is a lot higher than that if you're not up to date in your will, if you've got married recently as well. Please take some action tomorrow. Thank you very much. All the best.